welcome to the Check Out This Record podcast. My name is Frank, and with me, as always, is my good buddy Mark. This is a podcast where we talk about all sorts of musical goodness. We will review albums we've never heard of before. We will suggest albums to each other to review, have a wide variety of musical discussions. You can check us out on Instagram and YouTube. If you like what we have to say, please leave us a review, and hopefully it's a 5-star review. You may like us, you may think we're music snobs, and we are, and that's okay. However, if you can escape with us just for a little bit, then we have done our job. So, Mark, how are you, my man?
Doing good, Frankie. How are you, buddy?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. You know, I'm super excited for this episode. We've been talking a lot about it. We have our album reviews, as you know. We have our Versus series on YouTube. Of course, you can do our check out this song. And now in our 19th episode, we have our Spotlight series. And these episodes,
barely legal.
There you go, right? These episodes will go through the careers from inception to now to some of our favorite bands. So, Mark, I know you're digging this concept right here.
Yeah, this was a really, really kind of fun idea that we had been tossing around for a little bit. Of course, you know, when you talk about spotlighting a band, particularly something as massive as their entire career, you know, who do you start with? What's important to you? What makes a great band? You know, you got to take in all those different things. So I think, you know, not to brag,
but you will.
But I think we made a great choice on this one.
Yeah, and as Mark said, you know, we're going to go through the entire history, how they were formed, the discography, and of course the thoughts on the albums. These are not track by track, but I'm excited for this because the first band we're going to do, and a band that we covet, is Rancid. That's right, one of the most impactful punk bands. Hell, just bands in general, as far as impact goes. In the 90s, they were pioneers for bringing punk to the forefront of music. They looked the part, massive blue and green mohawks with music tackling basically their life on the streets and just survival in general. So, Mark, if you're ready, I'm ready to do this, man.
Yeah, buddy. Let's jump on in it.
All right, let's do it. So we got childhood friends Tim Armstrong and Matt Freeman. They grew up together in Berkeley, California. As the song goes, started in 87 and ended in 89. They were in the highly influential ska punk band Operation Ivy. I don't want to get too much into them because that's an episode in itself. But Mark, a few words on Op Ivy.
Yeah, Operation Ivy was the canary in the coal mine for early 90s punk. You know, like it's amazing what they put out in 2 years. That I mean, really, we're talking about one record.
Yeah.
But you know, you have this band that fuses this really high energy punk sound and the ska aesthetic just like perfectly together before anyone had any idea that you could do that. You know, and like I said, the fact that this band was only a blip for 2 years, it's amazing the impact they have. I mean, you guys remember back in the Dookie episode where we talk about Green Day covering Operation Ivy and what an influence, and I know we're going to get into that in a little bit, what an influence Operation Ivy was on Green Day. I mean, you know, arguably one of the 90s other massive, the 90s wouldn't have been the 90s without this band things. So Operation Ivy, absolutely groundbreaking. I've already talked way longer than I was supposed to about this, but just like really, this was the first warning shot when it came to ska punk, when it came to what street punk would become. You know, this is the first step in that evolution, and I promise I'm done.
Yeah, and you know, to me, there's a mystique about them. I mean, 2 years, one album, poof, they're gone. Obviously, things worked out for Rancid, but I think what's interesting about them is they may have been that first ska-influenced band to incorporate those short, punchy punk songs. And again, just a hugely influential group on so many facets. But back to Rancid, right? So after Operation Ivy, Tim Armstrong and Matt Freeman formed a new ska punk band called Downfall, and then a hardcore band called Generator. They also started the Dancehall Crashers, but they left after. And that was something I didn't know, but in my research, I obviously discovered this. Armstrong was struggling with alcoholism, so Freeman suggested they form a new band in 91, and then Rancid was born. So in an interview I remember watching of Billy Joe Armstrong from Green Day, he knew Tim Armstrong from the scene, and he referred to Tim as an odd guy. Now, not to go too long into Tim, but I think he's one of those musicians, artists, where his mind is just wired differently. That awkwardness, the slurred talking and singing, and the way he plays the guitar, he's kind of always reminds me of like a Tom Waits type of guy. Mark, quick thoughts on Tim Armstrong?
Frank, I think you nailed it with that a Tom Waits comparison, especially his early work crafting songs really thoughtfully, really thought-provoking lyrics, but paired with this blistering punk rock sound. It was unlike anything that was really out there at the time. It's interesting. People would always assume that Billy Joel Armstrong and Tim Armstrong were in some way related,
Yeah.
but it turns out they're not. They just happen to essentially grow up in the right bubble and be close to each other. Really just kind of crazy. In fact, do you mention this later that before Lars was considered after the second album? We do talk about this later. Billy Joel was offered the gig and turned it down, which I think it was a great thing for us because we got two really cool bands out of it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, so I mean, it's pretty awesome. Tim definitely is kind of a weird guy. The alcoholism, his drug use. Definitely he's got that raspy voice. He's got this great way of lyrics. I think Tom Waits is a great comparison for him. He's the punk rock Tom Waits.
Yeah, absolutely. So what then Tim and Matt did is they recruited their roommate, Brett Reed, as the drummer. And in 92, they released an EP on Lookout, and then they signed Epitaph Records and released their first record. So Rancid, 93, as it's been called, was released on May 10th, 1993, Epitaph Records. Okay, here's the facts. Tim Armstrong, Matt Freeman, Brett Reed. That's the lineup. It's the only Rancid album not to feature Lars Frederiksen, who joined the band prior to the album's release. A music video was made for the track Hyena. It's 16 songs, and it clocks in at 34 minutes and 15 seconds. So, Mark, let's talk about Rancid 93. What's your thoughts on this album?
It's dirty. It's fast. Just a solid punch to the eardrum. This record's so great. Like, there's legitimately not a bad song on it. It's so fucking good. This record's so good.
I love this record.
It's one of those things, and it's crazy. Lars is such a figure later on in the records, right? He really adds this balance to them.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. You get Tim and Matt singing both on this record. I'm one of those guys. I don't have a problem with Matt singing. I know it's a problem for a lot of people. But I think hey, look, he's, if Tim's got a rough voice, Matt's got, a chainsaw for a voice. But look, his songs are all really well written, all really heartfelt. And it adds this level of everyman to Rancid. And you really feel that with the first record. This is one of those albums that makes you go, I can be in a really awesome punk band, even if you don't deserve to be. Right? Matt Freeman is hands down top 2 or 3 bassists on the fucking planet.
Oh, absolutely. And
alive or dead.
Totally.
Yeah. So when I say like, Matt Freeman can do it, so can you. No. Matt Freeman can sing some songs, and so can you. You can't necessarily play bass the way he does, but God damn it, try, because he's amazing. And if you can compare yourself to him, you're doing yourself an injustice, because that dude shreds in no way that you can.
Oh, it's amazing. What would you have to say is your favorite tracks from this album? And if you had to, maybe some of the ones you could do without. I mean, I don't like to say least favorite, but just maybe on the lower tier.
So for my favorite tracks, and proof pudding that Matt Freeman is one of the greatest bass players of all time, Rejected. That song absolutely shreds. It's all the energy, all the punks, all the angst, everything you want in a great song. Just really awesome. And then, this one for me, least favorite's the best way to describe it because this song is awesome, or the album is awesome, excuse me. But Out of My Mind, not a bad song. It's just we've got 15 other songs that all just absolutely dominate. This is the one that I felt did the least, but not in a bad way. I'm in no way saying that this is a bad song. In fact, if I could leave it out, I wouldn't have picked it. In fact, I do that later on. So I tried really hard to be fair, because I know a lot of people want to say that, I'm only saying that because it's finally a band I like. No, like I'm going to be critical of this band. No Sacred Cows. This fucking album rocks, and I'll fight anybody over it.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. So, listen, Lars joins the band, he's on the album, but what's cool about this record is there's no hints of Op Ivy at all. No ska. I mean, this album is blistering with its fast, gritty sounding songs about Tim's desperate times in his life. I mean, even the songs that are lightning fast, you could just feel his experiences. At one time, the time before Life Won't Wait, I actually considered this my favorite Rancid album of all time. I mean, tracks like Hyena, Detroit, Rats in a Hallway, Another Night, Animosity, Union Blood. I mean, some of my favorite Rancid tunes, especially like some tracks just creep up on you. Like Another Night, I remember one time just years ago, I was listening to it. And I'm like, this is a damn good song, man. If there has to be a complaint on the album, of course, Matt Freeman's vocals. Listen, as we said, he's one of the best bass players of all time. I really wish he wouldn't sing sometimes as often as he does, but this is before Lars, so I give it a pass. Overall, I think this is a very impressive debut outing of an album that I think gets massively overlooked in their catalog. My favorite tracks: Hyena, Detroit, Another Night, Union Blood. Least favorite, if I had to leave one out, it'd be like Whirlwind, something like that.
Yeah, fair enough. And that's the tough thing on this, right? Like,
yeah.
When you've got a record you love, it's hard to pick songs that you don't feel really fit the bill, but this is a tough one, man. This is a really tough one.
It's such a good record. So, and again, just very, very overlooked in their catalog. Shortly after this, at the album's release, with the addition of Lars, they released Radio EP via Fat Records. And we talked about this, of course, on the Green Day episodes, which you could check out in the old archives. But Billy Joe was once considered for his role as the second guitarist, but declined. But he has writing credits on the song Radio. This EP is short. We get 4 songs, and 2 of them, Radio and Dope's a Girl, which get recorded on the second album. That second album is Let's Go. Released June 21st, 1994, Epitaph Records. So here we go. Tim Armstrong.
You really did that Let's Go really good.
Did you like it?
Yeah, you did it really good.
Do you think they're going to like it?
I hope
So
so.
Tim Armstrong, Lars Frederiksen, Matt Freeman, Brett Reed. It took them 6 days to record this 23-song album that clocks in at 44 minutes, excuse me. It was originally intended to be a double album. Of course, Billy Joe Armstrong has writing credits on the song Radio. Nihilism and Salvation are the singles, and Sidekick, on a quick little fun note, was about Tim daydreaming that he accompanies Wolverine on adventures. So, Mark, let's go. Talk about Let's Go.
Absolutely. So I want to address this up front and early, because I feel like it's the best place to do it. And like I said, I promise not to treat Rancid like a sacred cow. These albums, and this one in particular, right, because it was supposed to be a double album, have a habit of feeling much longer than they are.
Yes.
There's a lot of songs packed in really tight, right? 23 songs, 44 minutes. If you are not used to listening to this kind of punk rock, it all kind of blends together and you can get lost in it. That said, if you like this sound, and I know I do, it's awesome. But I understand why people have a hard time getting into it, especially a record like this. It's dense, it's tightly packed, but this thing rules. I'm just gonna go ahead and just like slobber all over its dick, because this record is so goddamn cool, man. Nihilism, Radio, Sidekick, Salvation, Tenderloin is amazing. Title track, Let's Go, As One, Burned, Ballad of Jimmy and Johnny, Gunshot, I'm the One, Gave It Away, Ghetto Box, Harry Bridge, Black and Blue, Saint Mary, Dope Sick Girl. International Cover-Up. How fucking cool is International Cover-Up? Solitary, Midnight Motorcycle Ride, which is one of my favorite songs of all time, Name, and 7 Years Down. This record is insane. So for me, one of my favorite tracks, definitely going to have to be Motorcycle Ride. Least favorite is going to be Harry Bridges. Again, just not as rad as the rest of the record. There's a lot here. Something's bound to be not as good as the rest of it. And for me, that was it. Not saying it's a bad song in any way.
Well, you know what? Outcome to Wolves was the first album I bought, but Salvation was actually the first song I heard from Rancid. And the presence of Lars is felt here right away with the opening track, Nahism. And here's the theme we'll be getting into on most of my takes, though, on these records. And Mark, I've been gnawing at this for the past week, but I want more Lars, right? He's such an anchor to this band and a great balance to Tim's Shane MacGowan type singing. Like, Lars carries just great melodies and he holds down the fort on guitar. This album has a shit ton of songs, and honestly, maybe it could be, like Mark said, I mean, it could be less, maybe 6 to 7, possibly even 8 songs less, and I'd be super happy. Radio is such a staple, and there's some really nice nuggets in here too. Gave It Away. I personally like Harry Bridges. I think that's a well-written song. And Saint Mary. Again, we get Matt singing here, which I'd rather have not occur, but, I always think, well, just give Lars those songs, and because it's not till track 16 with Saint Mary where we get a mainly Lars singing song, but I guess he's new to the group. He's got to earn that. The production to me doesn't seem quite as punchy as Rancid 93 did. In the end, I get lost over a few tracks. However, it's a great follow-up to a debut, and you could just tell they're on the verge of something. So favorite track, Salvation, Ballad of Jimmy and Johnny. I like Harry Bridges. Saint Mary. Least favorite, again, if I had to leave one out, or two, would maybe be like As One or 7 Years Down. But overall, I mean, hell, what a second record, right, Mark?
Oh, seriously. You can see with a lot of these records where the amount of tracks they're able to put on an album, the amount of songs they're able to write, and well-written songs for the most part. A lot of the times, most bands, these would be the best songs on their albums, and these, could have been B-sides, but they're still great, and you feel that drag a little bit in a few of their albums, where the albums go on a little longer because they have so many songs and the density is so heavy. That said, I think that there definitely could have been some weight cut from this. 45 minutes for a punk rock album is really long, especially 23 songs into it. It's a lot, but I mean, these records are as near perfect as punk rock records get.
Yeah.
It's
Rancid. Let's go. I mean, it's got legendary street cred. What can you say? And maybe they recorded so many songs because they just got Lars, right? They were amped about it. Completed the family of the band, and let's record everything. They don't stop there. So we go into now 95, right before the next album, and Out Come the Wolves comes out. They release a single for Roots Radical. I mention that because the B-side to that is I Want to Riot, which is a really, really awesome Rancid song. I have the single. It's a rougher take of Roots Radical, but I Want to Riot is an awesome track. Then we get to August 22nd of 95, Epitaph Records, and Out Come the Wolves. So again, Tim Armstrong, Lars Frederiksen, Matt Freeman, Brett Reed. Their popularity made them attractive to major labels during the break between Let's Go and then Out Come the Wolves, but they decided to stay with Epitaph. The title comes from Jim Carroll's The Basketball Diaries, first Rancid record to display their ska influence. We get 19 songs here, again, just jam-packing it in at 49 minutes. Roots Radicals, Time Bomb, Ruby Soho are the singles, certified gold in 96, platinum in 2004, widely considered one of the best punk rock albums of all time. Mark, take it away.
Yeah, I absolutely love this record. You do feel its length towards the end. I mean, this thing is so stacked. You look at songs like As Wicked, The War's End, She's Automatic, Daily City Train, of course, Ruby Soho, Junkie Man, Listed MIA, Olympia, Washington, Lockstep and Gone. Roots Radical. That I'm super jealous of that EP you have.
Yeah, that's awesome.
This record is phenomenal, and it paved the way for so much. You can imagine if they had taken the steps that Green Day or The Offspring did, right? Because we're talking about August of '95. Both of those bands are huge. Smash and Dookie are everywhere. If they had chosen to, they could have done the same thing, but they stuck with their crowd. They stuck with the people that supported them through the last two records, and really, gave us a punk rock masterpiece. The ska influence is amazing, and the pop punk is some of the best pop punk in the fucking world. This record is just absolutely killer. If I had to pick a favorite track,
yeah.
I've got a soft spot for Lockstep and Gone. I just absolutely love that song. Roots Radical's way up there for me.
Oh, yeah.
Journey to the End of the East Bay. I could literally go on for days, and this is where I'm gonna politely decline a least favorite track. I'm gonna plead the fifth on this one. This record's just fucking so good, dude. It's I don't understand people who would rather listen to Blink-182 than Rancid.
I know.
Especially when you put this record next to any Blink record. Like, get the fuck out of here. This record is so good.
It's so amazing.
Yeah.
You had Bad Religion, Stranger Than Fiction. You had Green Day's Dookie. Like you said, Offspring, Smash. And then we get Out Come the Wolves. And those four records really helped revive the interest in punk in 90s for the mainstream. And this album, listen, it takes a step back from the speed from the previous two and puts a focus to me on the quality of the songs. Their brand of ska makes a loud presence with their massive hit Time Bomb, but also with great tracks. You get Daly City Train, Old Friend. I remember vividly on Saturday Night Live, they performed Roots Radical and Ruby Soho, and I was hooked because the sound, the energy, and of course the way that, Lars was just like a big statue of a guy. He just held the fort down. And to me, this album represents how you slow things down, but do not care about sellout term because it still had an edge and still had their signature sound and took it to the next level. Songs like Olympia, Washington just take that simple structure, layer it with great visual lyrics, and creates a song that you could sing along with forever. We get the most balance here thus far between Tim and Lars, with most of the songs having a verse, chorus, or the same elements sung by the other. This is when the band shines to me because it's like two different styles, but they also find a way to meet in the middle. Matt Freeman's bass line on Maxwell Murder, is great, and we don't get him singing on this album, which is a moderate plus for me. This is a record you can play front to back, never get tired of it. Even the lesser songs are tolerable hits, while they're not overplayed. I'm not the hits themselves. Like Time Bomb and Ruby Soho. I'm not personally tired of them. It is their in my opinion, I think it's, I think towards the end you hear maybe a couple of tracks you could do without, but it's regarded as one of the best punk records of all time. I could see why. Real quick, favorite tracks: Olympia, Washington, Roots Radicals, Old Friend, Lockstep, Gone. If I had to pick a favorite, I know Mark, you didn't pick one, but I would say like the last track, The Way I Feel, because they rarely perform that track.
Yeah. Hey, look, I can understand that. It's these albums are marathons, not sprints, which is amazing because they're running the whole time. They're in a full sprint the whole time, even with this album, because it is a little, Frank's not wrong. They definitely toned down the tempo in it to present more thoughtful, more well-developed songwriting and song structure. But it still holds up to anything. I can't think of anything off the top of my head where you can go, oh well, this album track for track is better than it. I don't know.
It's hard. It's really hard.
And I hate saying something's a perfect record or near perfect, but this album's,
it's close to it.
It's insane. It's so good.
Yeah.
So,
and I was telling you earlier, what's cool is I just want to add, like in 95, 96-ish, I bought a Rancid live import. It was called See It in the Pit. It was a live show from London. And the quality of those tunes, they weren't great, but they had some live studio versions of Time Bomb, She's Automatic, and Junkie Man. If you could check it out, the Time Bomb version, it's awesome. It's a little louder. There's an extra verse after the organ solo where Tim and Lars go back and forth with the singing. It's awesome. Adds a whole new element to an already awesome song. So I just wanted to add that in. And how do you think a band could then follow up a record like this? Well, this is how you do it. You go right into the studio after the Out Come the Wolves tour, and you record something like Life Won't Wait, which was released in June 30th, 1998, Epitaph Records. Here we go with the next record. So you get Tim, Lars Fredriksson, Matt Freeman, Brett Reed. After An Out Come the Wolves, as I said, they went immediately into the studio to record this. So Brett Gureritz here from Bad Religion, and of course of Epitaph Records, he's not the producer. Armstrong and Fredriksson opted to produce. During this time, they wrote over 50 songs, some that have never even been released. So this album is 22 songs, 64 minutes. The cover photo pays homage to John Lennon's rock and roll album and Neil Young's After the Gold Rush. Blood Clot was a single. You get some special guests in here. You get Dickie Barrett from the Boss Tones, Vic Ruggiero from the Slackers, Roger Merritt from Agnostic Front, and of course, Roger Merritt and the Destroyers, Alex Desert from Hepcat, and Marky Ramone. Mark, I know this album you covet, so go have at it, man.
Yeah, this album fucking rules.
Yeah.
This is the equivalent of to the Clash's massive triple LP Sandinista, where Sandinista left Clash fans really scratching their head about what the band was trying to do. Rancid really found a way to tie in their ska and root reggae influences that they have been talking about for some time. And really, if you know the back history of the band, you understand how important those things are. You don't found a band like the Dancehall Crashers without having a deep love for that style. You're not in a band like Operation Ivy without having a passion for that type of influence and that spread. Now this album did take a while for traditional Rancid fans, especially all the fans they just brought in with Out Come the Wolves, to understand what was going on, but they came to it much quicker than most Clash fans came back to Sandinista. Because I know many of them still haven't. Whereas this album has really been, later on accepted in as one of their best albums. It's my personal favorite, even though I think this is the first one where you really, for me, I go, okay, I skip a song. I think that's the first judge, right? This is the one where, my least favorite track is Lady Liberty. A little more rockabilly. Matt Freeman steps this one up a little bit, but to me it just doesn't fit in to the groove of it. But I mean, like, when it comes to favorite tracks, you get songs like Black Lung, Crane Fist, Cash Culture and Violence, The Wolf, 1998. Like, this record is just so cool. If you haven't heard check out this song on Frank, say the name of it for me.
Corazon de Oro.
Thank you. Go check that out. It's on YouTube. We dive deep into it. Really cool song. You really feel Tim Armstrong getting personal with this record. And I think this was a really personal record for the band. You get this opportunity to have success and really focus in on what you want to do by producing the record yourself.
Yeah, totally.
And I think they nailed it. This is such a cool record. It brings in so many cool elements. You really, you understand where the transplants come from later. You experience where the band came from before, and these, with the exception of the next record, this will penetrate everything they do. That, it'll really, like, you feel that Life Won't Wait in all of the remaining records after this. And you'll feel the other influence as well, but you can tell how important to their sound this was, and the need to get it out and get it on record. This record is absolutely amazing to me.
So incredible.
Yeah. What do you think, Frank? Because I've been yammering.
No, and I wanted you to, because I know how much you covered this album. So, and there's some length to this, but I won't make it boring, I promise. So we get a sharp turn here with Life Won't Wait, often compared to, as you said, the Clash of Sandinista with regards to the wide musical variety and overall experimentation. I was thinking about, though, sometimes I would prefer to even compare this to London Calling, because you still get that same experimentation, but they get the better record in Sandinista, and the songs were good. But anyway, I was up, I remember one night watching 120 Minutes with Matt Pinfield. Do you remember that show, right, Mark?
I sure do.
And I caught the debut of Blood Clot, the video, which was awesome. And it was followed by an interview. Of course, I didn't listen to the record yet, as it wasn't out, but I noticed Lars talking more taking like a almost of a leadership role in the band. He was speaking the most during the interviews, and of course, Lars is all over this album. We get an equal split here with 11 songs. Where he's either singing the whole song or at least has a verse or more. Mark, the welcoming of Lars almost have an even split here. You welcome that, right?
Oh, absolutely. I really feel his balance into the band. We get that first record where you don't hear much, if any, of their ska influence and their ska past. And then as he gets into the band, more of that classic kind of roots reggae comes out. And, I think Lars is a key figure for that when it comes to building these songs that have depth and structure and do more than just go really, really, really fast.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this album has every style. It has punk, ska, rockabilly, rock steady, straight up rock and roll. Listen, and Out Come the Wolves, it lowered the speed, and this took it to a whole different level. There are some right on here that are right out mellow and steady, but the tracks work. Why? Because the lyrics are tight, the melodies are there, and the overall musicianship and structure of the songs are anything but ordinary. In fact, I remember when I was trying to learn how to play guitar, I'm still learning many of these songs. I really liked the chord structures, and it was unlike the other stuff that they were doing before. So this album proves you can be quieter and write incredibly meaningful and impactful songs with an edge. Hoover Street gives an amazing visual story that captivates the listener. The track Life Won't Wait. I mean, how good is Life Won't Wait, the song, Mark?
It's amazing.
I mean, it's filled with just musical goodness everywhere. This vision is a new world order. It's chanted over the chorus. I like Lady Liberty because it shows that kind of rockabilly song. And of course, we spoke about Corazon de Oro, which really exposes Tim's heart, and it's great. If there's a way for me to explain what I also say about songs and songwriting, I don't care if it's fast or slow. In fact, slower songs are harder to write, but if you tone it down, you have to write your heart out and you have to make it cut through the surface, and that's what we have here. It's a wonderful journey. It keeps you guessing, hey, what's next? For me, when I first listened to this album front to back, it was like my whole world opened up to these galaxies of different sounds. So the need for singles is here because you get a whole just record of superb songwriting. Again, punk songs, you got it, right? Mellow and subdued tunes, you got it. Ska numbers, yep, spooky piano riffs, saxophone, trumpets, steel drums, all of it. Only downside to me, Mark, is that it ends. Most of the tracks I can't find live. I saw them during this time, and they played for this tour, and they played some of them live. But I would like to have seen more. I hope one day they could decide to perform this album in full. I know that was long-winded, but favorite tracks: Hoover Street, Life Won't Wait, Blood Clot, 1998, so many more. If I had to pick a least favorite, Cocktail. And that's it. It's one of those records, Mark, I know we said wasn't well received, which is completely preposterous, but this is one of those records when you look back and you're like, it's really incredible, right, Mark? Just a special record this is.
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely love this record. It's one of those ones, if you listen to it before and went, oh, that's not one of Rancid's best work, do yourself a favor.
Please.
Sit down with a pair of headphones, a glass of wine. Sit down with this record. Really put it on, turn it up. This record's cool as fuck. Yeah. Drive around to this record, whatever you got to do. This thing's awesome. You will not be disappointed in it.
No, all the cool sounds you pick up. It's just really, really cool. So how do they follow this up? Well, here we go. Rancid 5 or Rancid 2000, released on August 1st, 2000. This is on Hellcat Records now. So we have Tim again. A subsidiary. You got it. You got it, my man. So Tim, Lars, Matt, Brett all return. Released again on Tim Armstrong's Hellcat label. Features the return of Brett Guritz as producer. 22 songs, 38 minutes. Yes, 22 songs, 38 minutes. Let Me Go was released as a single. Goodbye, Ska and Rocksteady, and Hello Hardcore. And these were recorded live in the studio. So, Mark, take it away on Rancid 2000, man.
Put this album on at the gym and murder your workout and everyone else in the gym. This fucking record bangs.
Yeah.
No, this fucking record fucks. It gets up and fucks. It's aggressive and intelligent at the same time. Dude, this record is awesome. Rancid proves here not only can they write amazing songs in under 2 minutes, they can write a fucking ton of them. This thing is so fast, so deadly, but still has some really amazing songs in it. It just honestly, this record gets just out of control. Like for me, favorite tracks, Radio Havana.
Oh, such a good track.
And Golden Gate Field. Now, I probably picked the two longest songs on the record.
I think you did, but that's okay.
But, and then like Let Me Go is like 3 minutes as well. But like, you get, Don Giovanni right off the gate, I Am Forever, Loki, Black Hawk Down, which was that in like a Tony Hawk skate game?
I believe so.
Rwanda's a really cool, really smart song that just isn't just like, some punks getting drunk in a hallway.
No.
See what I did there?
I did.
But then you balance out with songs like Axiom, Black Derby Jacket, Dead Bodies is an absolute barn burner. This record, if the idea was people thought after Life Won't Wait that Rancid wasn't punk anymore.
Yeah.
Rancid's 100% more punk than you can ever possibly fucking be, and you don't deserve to listen to them because this album rips. This album is so good. This is
so good.
It's insane to me. 22 songs in 38 minutes. This is absolutely nuts. And it's there's no dead weight here. There can't be.
No. They don't allow it to be.
No, and like. You barely get, the nice thing with this record is each song has like probably a 5 to 6 second intro of, guitar hum. It's basically so the listener can catch their breath. They're doing you a favor and not pummeling you to death. This fucking record's awesome. And honestly, as far as least favorite songs go,
yeah,
fuck you. I'm not picking one.
Yeah, okay, there you go. That's the spirit, man. That's the spirit.
Thanks, buddy.
Listen, I covered this record so much. You can't even say Rancid went back to their roots here because it doesn't even sound like the first two records. They pushed it further and they created the angriest, meanest, and fiercest record to date. I recall, here we go, I'm getting out myself here. I recall downloading Don Giovanni and Disgruntled on Napster. I know.
Thief.
I know. And I was like, wait, is this Rancid? I was like, it can't be. It sounds like Tim. I was like, but who's the guy screaming? And why on the back, from the images I saw, like of the pre-album press, why does he look like Wolverine on the back cover? Well, it was Rancid. And to me, this record, like Life Won't Wait, is perfect. There's no fluff here, no ska. Lars is the secret weapon with hard and strained vocals. I mean, tracks like I Am Forever, Loki, Axiom, Dead Bodies, impeccable. Matt Freeman's distorted bass lines are unreal. I mean, an Axiom, it could quite possibly be one of the most impressive solos he's done, and that's saying a lot. And then you get
blistering fast.
And then you get his stuff on Young Al Capone. I mean, this is inhuman. Yeah. And he does sing a few tracks. I get it. And Lars sings a little less because of that. But it's okay because it's an insanely tight and vicious record. Tim's on spot here too with Let Me Go, Radio Havana. I guess those are the more single-worthy tunes. And then he sings his heart out on things like Not to Regret, which is fantastic, and Rattlesnake. I mean, just absolutely amazing. This is an unforgiven album. And it tests your loyalty to the band. They really make you like them for what they are. And up to this point, it's a punk band that can give you West Coast style, really fast punk songs, Ramones style punk songs, Clash style experimentation, and now hardcore. I mean, I classify it as hardcore. It's one of my favorite hardcore albums, one of my favorite albums. Favorite tracks: Disgruntled, I Am Forever, Loki, Not to Regret, Axiom, Dead Bodies, Young Al Capone. If I had to pick a least favorite, Meteor of War. But I mean, Mark, what a record, man, right?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, don't get drunk and put this on. You'll punch a hole in your wall.
Yeah, and Mark wasn't wrong about the working out to this in the gym. This is my go-to in the gym. Running nowadays because the gym is out of commission. But this song gets it going, and just fantastic. It's another record where I wish they would perform it front to back. I'd love to hear how they do it, but just incredible.
Yeah, but at 55, they'll probably fall apart before they finish the record, like playing it front to back. The idea of trying to cover any of these songs, like. Oh my god, this record's so fucking good. If you don't like Rancid, pause the podcast right now.
Yeah.
Punch yourself in the face. Listen to everything up to this point, just nonstop. Just pull a Descendants, go put on like a double pot of black coffee, and just pile through these records. They are so good.
So good. So good. Now that's in 2000. So in 2001, March 6th specifically, we got Lars Frederiksen and the Bastards. They released their debut record. Just a quick note: I love this record. I like the debut. Mark, you feel the same, right?
I wrote the same note. I love this record.
It's awesome, and I think that we could highlight that on maybe Lars and Tim's solo stuff on a separate episode. But then in 2002, we get the BYO Split Series Volume 3. I'm really pissed this is not on Spotify. It's a cool concept here. We get Rancid covering 6 NoFX songs and NoFX covering 6 Rancid songs, and some weird alternate timeline, NoFX actually shows up Rancid here, and the only thing I could think as to why is the song selection. I think the songs that NoFX chose fit them better than the ones that Rancid chose for them, although Rancid does a fantastic version of Sticking in My Eye. Mark, real quick on this, and then we're going to play a little game.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a weird one, right, where NoFX shows them up.
Yeah, it really is weird, and I thought Rancid's best work on this was Vanilla Sex and Bruise. For some reason the back. Hey, look, so I happen to have the vinyl. I listened to it today before this. It's rough. Rancid really, you would have thought that they would have knocked it out of the park a little harder. But they picked some interesting songs and they didn't quite deliver the way NoFX was able to, but I don't think they did a bad job per se. I think
maybe it's that we didn't expect NoFX to do such a good job. Maybe is that what it was?
And that's possible. But I thought it'd be fun if we played a game.
Yeah, let's do it.
In which you and I each get to pick 6 songs from NoFX's catalog. I should have said this earlier. Up to this point. Did you pick anything newer than this?
I think I may have. I have to. Maybe it might just be one. It might just be one track.
Okay. Well, all 6 of mine are from before this was released because I kind of did it in that mindset. But why don't you give me the 6 songs? Because it's the interesting thing with the Split series. They pick some really cool songs, but is it the record label picking them? Is it, if I'm Rancid, am I telling NoFX what songs to play, or am I picking my own songs?
So, such a good point, actually. Yeah. How did that come to be?
I tried Googling it, but maybe I didn't have the right keywords. I couldn't find anything. If you're on the internet and you understand how they were able to do that, shoot us an email. You know how to contact us at this point. Because I'd love to know. But anyways, this game is, Frank, what 6 NoFX songs would you have picked for Rancid to cover?
Absolutely. And real quick, I need to know on that vinyl, do you have, because there's 2 versions, I think the green has NoFX first and then the orange has Rancid first. Which one do you have?
I have the orange.
Nice. So Rancid.
And they're there's a Rancid side and a NoFX side.
Cool. Yeah, I was just curious about that. Okay, so here's and I have one that actually is past this time, so I'll leave it out, but I'll replace. So I actually would keep with Sticking in My Eye. I think they did a good version of that, but Green Corn from the Ribbed album, I would like to see them do that one. I would like them to do Please Play This Song on the Radio. I know that's kind of like their hit. I would like I could see Tim maybe singing that. I would do All Out of Angst from So Long and Thanks for All the Shoes. I would also like to do Eat the Meek from that same album.
Oh,
hey-o.
That's my number 5 choice.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And then I would like to do You're Bleeding. So those are the tracks I chose. What about you, my man?
I went with a little more eclectic choice. I went with Freedom Like a Shopping Cart.
Nice. Okay.
Eat the Meek at number 5.
Good.
Kids of the K-Hole.
Yeah, from So Long and Thanks for All the Shoes. Yeah.
Yeah. Bleeding Heart Disease.
Okay.
Dying Degree.
Okay.
And then Sold Out, one of my favorites.
Oh, okay. Very cool, man.
I think that'd be a really fun, you give them a chance, throw a couple of them like reggae style, let Lars maybe rip into Dying Degree.
Yeah.
I think it'd be a fun little split. But hey, who knows how these things are picked? If they pulled song names out of a hat, what they did. But That's our alternate universe where Marc or Frank got to pick the lineup.
Yeah, totally, totally. Now we move on to later on in that year, October 21st, we get the Transplants with their debut. The Transplants, Tim Armstrong, Travis Barker from Blink-182, and a gentleman by the name of Skinhead Rob. So, Mark, just again, quick thoughts on the Transplants debut.
I never really got into the Transplants. They were on a few comps. And I don't know if it's those comps were overshadowed with things I preferred,
Maybe, yeah.
or if I just didn't get into them. I appreciate some hip hop and some rap, but I've never really invested much into more than the Wu-Tang Clan and the Beastie Boys. So I can't really speak on it because I just didn't jump into it.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was some interesting arrangements here. I remember a song "Tall Cans in the Air," "Diamonds and Guns," but I mean, I bought it because I was a fan of Tim, so I wanted to kind of support. But yeah, it was a little bit harder to get into than say like Lars Frederiksen and the Bastards, of course.
Yeah.
So then we move on to 2003. We get August 19th, 2003. This is Indestructible from Hellcat Records with distribution of Warner Brothers. We get Tim, Lars, Matt, Brett Reed, that is, because Brett Gurewitz is also the producer. This is the last album to feature the original drummer, Brett Reed. We get singles Fall Back Down, Red Hot Moon, Tropical London, 19 tracks, 52 minutes. It's a lot. And this is an interesting factoid. A track that was left off called Trouble was reworked and released as a single by the pop star Pink on her third album, Try This, and it won a Grammy, which was just, I thought that was very interesting. And of course, this features a more poppier sound. We might get a little unforgiving here, but remember, this is in context to the other Rancid albums and kind of in that universe of Rancid albums. So, Mark, take it away on Indestructible.
Yeah, so interesting. Tim actually wrote 7 songs for that Pink album.
Yeah, crazy, right?
Of which that was one of them. Trouble was one of them. But anyways, so this is where I remember beginning not liking a Rancid album.
Yeah, we were in a band at the time, me and you.
When this came out,
talking about this, man, totally. I remember.
Yeah, so now I can hear the previous albums really melding together and coming through on this one. I feel like you get a good blend of Out Come the Wolves, Life Won't Wait, and just a touch of Rancid 2000 blended into this record. I really like it now much more than I did then.
Okay.
There does feel like a good amount of filler in it, though, particularly the back half, excuse me. I liked the singles. I liked Red Hot Moon and Tropical London. But I was a big fan of the song Other Side. I really dig that one. Yeah. One of my least favorites was Ghost Band. What's unfortunate is that Ghost Band has it's kind of the first song in a series of songs throughout the next few records where the lyrics really start to deteriorate in terms of their creativeness and tend to fall into a pattern of repetition that's just not of the same quality of the band's previous work. I really thought this was definitely, going back to it, a much better album than I remember. They prove once again, if they can keep it under 2 minutes, I'm going to like it. Typically. But Spirit 87 is an awesome song. I really like Memphis. I wasn't a big fan of Travis Bickle, excuse me. But I like
had
songs.
Potential too. That song had potential.
I like songs like Arrested in Shanghai and Django. But you just kind of feel, Ivory Coast, Stand Your Ground, Back Up Against the Wall, Born Frustrated. Not that these aren't decent songs, they're just not of the quality that you're used to out of Rancid. And it's too bad because the first half of this record still really is pretty awesome, and there are some gems on the back end of it, particularly Tropical London, and like I said, Other Side, the final track on the song. It just gets a little stagnant, and it's a long record. This this could have been 2 albums. For any other punk band, it probably would have been two albums for any other punk band.
Been.
But it's an interesting moment. Who knows what the dynamic was with Brett Reed and his departure? What effect that played in it?
Yeah.
If they knew it was coming at that point, or if this was just part of the evolution of the band. Like I said, I do enjoy this album, more than I remembered liking it.
Yeah.
And I'm happy that we went back to it, because I feel a lot better about the record now. I'm not quite so disappointed with it. But hey, there's still records to come, so we've got time for me to be disappointed.
So, and I was thinking about this too, because I'm a little harsh, I think, what I'm about to say here. But also, there's a lot of stuff going on. Like you said, Brett Reed, his departure, which I'm sure they could see the signs on the wall there. You had Lars Frederiksen and the Bastards, you had the Transplants, you had all these other musical outlets too. So it's tough to focus. The focal point wasn't just Rancid. So you get, after 2 amazing albums, one experimental and then one as mean as angry as you could get, what's next? Well, when I heard there was a new record album, or a new Rancid album, in my head, I don't know if we ever communicated this. I mean, who remembers freaking 2003? But I think, at least I thought it was going to be another An Outcome the Wolf style, just because we'll never get another Life Won't Wait, and we won't get Rancid 2000 again. This album, of course, represents what the band was going through, where Tim and his wife, Brody, got divorced. Lars lost his brother, Rob. And as stated earlier, this is the last album to feature Brett Reed on drums. So Fall Back Down, is the first single. And I wasn't a fan of this. I'm still not. I'm not saying this is the sellout album by any stretch of the imagination, but some of this just seems completely intentional. I mean, I like the opening track, Indestructible. I like the tribute to Joe Strummer, the lyric Through Music, We Could Live Forever. That's great. Red Hot Moon is one of the band's best, I think, and features Skinhead Rob, of course, from the Transplants. Mark, you said Spirit of 87. That's a great exchange of the verses between Tim and Lars. The Django is another classic Rancid Lightning track. And the slower number, I actually dig Tropical London and its sincerity about Tim's divorce. However, Lars is hardly showcased, with only being featured, meaning the songs that he actually sings in 5 tracks. It's uncalled for, in my opinion. I mean, we get no Matt Freeman here. Thank God we get no Matt Freeman. But some of the Tim tracks, I mean, he couldn't have given those to Lars to sing, and his tracks, David Courtney and Out of Control, they don't go anywhere. Ghost Band, as you said, is silly. Travis Bickle had the potential, but they whiffed on it. Memphis, Roadblock, and Ivory Coast, to me, just falls flat. The last 3 albums had great consistency, and those 3 albums were just amazing, and this is what gets me. Now, the album closer, Other Side, Mark, I do like that. It's a touching tribute to Lars' late brother. The opening line, I was an atheist, you wore the crucifix, we put our differences to a side. I mean, just in general, if more people could practice that, we'd be way better off. Favorite track, Spirit of 87, Red Hot Moon, Django, Least, Ghost Band, Memphis, to me, Back Up Against the Wall, Ivory Coast, and more. I just don't like this album.
Yeah, no, fair. I'm surprised you're as against Memphis as you are. But hey, you know what? I get it. And this is one of those records that really divided a lot of people. I think, if people were like, oh, I don't know, Life Won't Wait, when they got here, they were like, whoa, what the fuck? And that's certainly the attitude I took. I think there's a little bit more here, and it's than I remembered. That said, when it came back to going back and listening to all these records,
yeah, I know.
All the stuff before this got a lot more playback than this and anything newer. So, because I've spent the whole week listening to this stuff. I'm just so excited for this.
I know, totally. And listen, hey, in 2004, July 13th, we get Lars Frederiksen and the Bastards' second album, Viking, which amazing, by the way. The first was great. This, to me, was even better. And this, to me, supplemented the fact that Indestructible fell flat. So what a great record that is, real quick, right, Mark?
Yeah. Well, and the crazy thing with both of the Lars Frederiksen and the Bastard albums, Tim wrote,
I know,
and produced. He produced both entire albums, but probably wrote 70% of the songs on both.
I know.
So it's one of those interesting things. We mentioned it before. Talking about a lot of different things going on with the band and all the members of the band. I think, was this when Matt Freeman was playing bass in Social Distortion as well?
You know,
Or
that's
is that a
true.
little later?
No, I think this was around that time, and we saw them live. Remember, the Lightning hit Social D's amp, and then it caused them not. They couldn't play that anymore. And Matt
Yeah.
Freeman was the bass player there. That's right. That's a good memory. Yeah.
So that would have been about this time. So you're talking about a band with a lot going on, very successful. It's an interesting time, and it's a record I think they won't be remembered as much for, but I think it's got a little more than people want to give it credit for.
Yeah. Yeah. And then after the Viking album from Lars Frederiksen the following year, June 21st of 2005, we get the second Transplants album, Haunted Cities. I don't know much about that album. I'd have to go back and listen to that. And then in 2007, on May 23rd, we get Tim Armstrong's A Poet's Life, so his first debut album. Then later in 2007, that's December 11th, we get Rancid's B and C sides, which I actually still want. I still want to try to find. So now we move on to 2009, June 2nd, 2009. Let the Dominoes Fall. Hellcat Records. So here we go. Tim Armstrong, Lars Frederiksen, Matt Freeman, and now Brandon Stein-Eckert.
Of the Used,
right? We'll get to that in a second. So we get Brett Gurewitz, of course, as the producer. You get 19 tracks, at 45 minutes. And although there's a deluxe version, and there is a deluxe version with 12 additional acoustic songs that this asshole is talking right now bought. There we get the singles Last One to Die and Up to No Good. So quite a gap between the albums. Obviously, there's a new drummer. Mark, you're a drummer. First of all, your thoughts on Brett Reed as a drummer.
Brett Reed as a drummer was always a mystery to me, right? He's the only punk rock drummer of success that played left-handed, which was insane. It almost looked like he didn't know what he was doing, but he was arguably one of the best drummers in the genre for years and years and years. He had speed like nobody else. He had rhythm like nobody else. Just really awesome player. And those records he's on, there's not one where you go, hey, look, we talk about how important rhythm sections are all the time, right? The bass and the drums have to be tight or it's not going to work.
Yeah.
When you're in a band with arguably the best bass player of all time, you have to have awesome chops. And he did. At no point are you listening to Matt, wail and going, man, I wish this drummer could keep up.
Yeah, totally.
To his greatest fault might be, hey, look, he had to play with Matt, and he was overshadowed because he's a great drummer. There's nothing wrong with anything any of the parts he played. There's never any spots where you go, man, that just didn't make sense. He's on point. He's on time. Live, they were amazing with him. So it's one of those. He was definitely a legend, and he was one of those guys that, that drum set flipped the other way, confused people.
Yeah. And so it's a big loss for the band too, if you think about it, especially because the band's a family, big loss there. And I don't know about you, but I don't know if we ever talked about this at the time, but I was actually surprised that the drummer they recruited was from the Used, because I was expecting, just a drummer from a similar style punk band to eventually be the new drummer. Were you equally surprised that they got the drummer from the Used?
I don't know that I was surprised as much as I went, oh, really? It sucks. So I guess I was surprised, but it's one of those things when you're in a band and I don't know, maybe they toured together, maybe who knows what the connection was that brought them together. They felt it vibed, and I can't blame them for that. Right. If you're feeling it, especially as a band, you go with it, and sometimes, Frank and I have been in situations where we kind of got along with somebody, but not enough. And we let them stick around a band too long, and it was kind of a problem.
Yeah. Pretty much everyone not named Frank and Mark.
Oh, come on.
No, okay.
But let's face it, usually I was the problem.
Yeah.
But that's okay. It's interesting. I think people want to blame, certainly the last 2 or 3 records on him.
Yeah.
I don't think that's fair.
Right.
The band had been going through enough changes. We see that with Indestructible. This road was kind of being etched before he ever got there.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I mean, so then leading into that, what is your thoughts on Let the Dominoes Fall? Because I know you re-listened to it and it kind of maybe changed some things a little bit.
It again, not as bad as I remembered. In fact, much better than I had remembered. But again, you really don't feel like the band as a whole is in the same room. You don't feel like they're on the same page as they were with, something like Rancid 2000, where they recorded all those songs live together. You just don't have that same feeling, that same punchiness. It's one of those weird ones where it just doesn't really gel for me. The record as a whole, I like Up to No Good.
Yeah, it's a good track.
And
Absolutely.
I ain't worried.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, pair that with L.A. Rivers' "Boom Shakalaka Shakalaka Boom," and
I know.
East Bay Night. I feel like Tim's trying to let you in. But I'm not sure if the words just aren't coming across or he doesn't want to, and it's hard to really tell what he's doing. This is where I kind of wanted to get, because these are the albums Frank and I like least. I really wanted to get a little more track by track with these, but we're not going to get too far into it because you'll be here for 12 hours. It's just tough. This record, you really feel the separation of the members. To me, that gel, that consistency that stuck this band together just isn't there anymore for me. And this is really, if Indestructible, like I said, the back half of Indestructible really was the first sign that things were bad. This is the first, like, nope, this whole record is we're going to have some problems. And hey, look, at this point, we're talking. This album's got 14 tracks on it, 32 minutes. Arguably, they're short. Or no, excuse me,
19. No, it's okay. 19 tracks, like 45
19
minutes.
tracks, 45 minutes. This is where, as a band, we have to say, maybe we need to start trimming some stuff away. Songs like New Orleans, 2 records ago, that song would have been awesome, or a record ago would have been a cool, but you get songs like Skull City that just really don't land right. The title track Dominoes Fall, again, you get kind of that laziness with Tim's lyrics.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate. And this album, it drags a bit. It drags a lot a bit.
Yeah. So, all right, here we go. Get into it. So first of all, where the hell is Lars? We get four vocal appearances, and I can make the argument that the track he sings solely on, New Orleans, that could be, in my opinion, the album's best. Right now, the album had a moderate start to it. I mean, East Bay Night, This Place, Up to No Good, and Last One to Die, they're not bad. But the unforgiving moments on this album, such as Matt singing his shimmy shimmies on L.A. River, and I think some of the lyrics, personally, on I Ain't Worried and The Bore of Civilian Ways, I don't mind the attempt for the use of acoustic styles, but what I'm going to say is then the songs have to be good. I could forgive him for one mediocre album, but 2 in a row in a more popular effort. And this is why I'm harder on this album. Although you'll see it in my ranking list where it ends, and of course we'll leave that to the end, folks, is a bad no. But in the context, we have to keep in mind this is being ranked and judged against the other Rancid records. The extra disc with the acoustic songs, it's a decent listen. New Orleans, the acoustic version features Tim singing as opposed to the album version, which features Lars, which is cool. But maybe they got comfortable for a moment. Maybe the outcome was too much over the last records prior to Indestructible, and the last 2 records are what we got. It's a collection of mediocre songs with few standouts. Whatever the case is, this is a low point for me. Favorite tracks, Up to No Good, New Orleans, both versions, least L.A. River. Please don't get me started on L.A. River. I ain't worried. And that's just the way it is now. I mean, the record's just not that good compared to the other Rancid albums, right, Mark?
Yeah, and I think that's the big thing. We're really looking at these compared to each other, and that's when you put an amazing body of work together, that's where you need to compete is with yourself. And
thank you.
These have a hard time of doing it, man.
They really do. They really do. Now, in 2010, we get Devil's Brigade, which is Matt Freeman's punk psychobilly outfit, where he plays a stand-up bass. So, if you don't like Matt singing, don't listen to the record. But again, you're going to get excellent, superb bass playing. Of course, just bass playing overall, the technique, stand-up bass, which is pretty cool. Then in 2012, we start getting Tim Timebomb. So that's Tim under Tim Timebomb and Friends. It's just a collection of Rancid tunes, covers, and original tracks. Interesting take on Rancid songs. I mean, the arrangements are really unique and eclectic. The covers, such as Bob Dylan, Tom Waits, and even Summer of '69. These are real quick, Mark. These are a lot of fun, right?
Yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. Do yourself a favor, jump down that rabbit hole.
Yeah,
it's cool. You know, they're really fun, different takes on everything from Rancid classics that you know and love to really fun covers to some original stuff that you hadn't heard before. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, super cool artwork on each of the singles. I think it's a fun listen. In 2013, on June 25th, the Transplants are then releasing their third album, In a War Zone. I don't know anything about that record, Mark. Do you?
I know that it took them a really long time to put out. You know, a couple, I think Skinhead Rob had mentioned that the band had broken up, and then Travis said, no, it'll be done at the end of the year. And then like 2 years later, it came out. I don't know.
Yeah, that's another episode.
So, yeah, I mean, it could be, but I'd prefer we didn't.
Yeah. Totally. So then October 27, 2014, we get Honor Is All We Know on Hellcat Records. So we get Tim, Lars, Matt, and Brandon. Brett Gruritz is the producer. They began working on the record actually in 2011, but due to other happenings and constraints, it came out in 2014. It's actually, the proper album is 14 tracks and 32 minutes, really condensed for a Rancid album. The Spotify version has 3 additional tracks. Mark, Honor Is All We Know. Let's have at it.
You know, you guys will hear me and Frank talk about cover art and what that makes us think when we start up a record. And the first thing I noticed with this, not so much the art itself, but the title itself, the ellipsis, if you will,
that mimics And Out Come the Wolves, right? So it's ... honor is all we know. Like Out Come the Wolves was ... and Out Come the Wolves. Right, we're finishing an idea or a theory here. So for me, it felt a lot like we're trying to pull you back. Excuse me, I'm gonna burp.
Nice.
Thank you. Taste the peppers in that one.
Yeah, I had peppers too, by the way. Those
nice. It felt like they were trying to say to you, hey, we want to go back to And Out Come the Wolves. And it was one of those subtle touches. I could be completely making that up. I feel like the record itself tries to do that. They tried to slow it down a little bit more to make it more like And Out Come the Wolves, to make it a little bit more maybe pop friendly. Didn't really work for me. There's a couple songs on here that are great. There's a couple songs on here that are pretty terrible. I think my favorites on the record, Collision Course, Evil Is My Friend, and Everybody's Suffering. You know, there's some really Everybody's Suffering in particular, really interesting, well-written song.
which is a cover, by the way.
Yeah. So
Come to find out, that's a cover. Yeah.
Yeah. Look at that. So
what about least favorite tracks?
Least favorite is going to be that title track. Honor Is All. No, you know, it feels forced, and there's something about the way they all kind of sing honor instead of honor.
Yeah, I did notice that. Yeah.
The pronunciation of it makes me a little crazy. Just because this isn't a word that should be tricky for them to pronounce. It's not one of those things. I know that sometimes, you can play with how a word is said to make it fit into a song. I didn't think it was needed for this, and really this record is just disappointing through and through.
It's an interesting record. So you get live performance videos of Collision Course, Honor Is All We Know, and Evil's My Friend. And for me right away, I was like, okay, I like the tracks better. And I personally thought Evil Is My Friend is one of the best songs they've done in years. the album, like you said, tries to pull you back in. I think there are points in it where the arrangements almost sound pop punk, but from where we were, I don't know. I always go back and forth. I was like, maybe I'll take this. Listen, Lars doesn't have any songs that are just sung by him. Of course, I have to make a note of that in every review here, but his voice makes an appearance in 7 of the 14 songs. Already Dead to me is a highlight with Lars singing, starting things off, and you get Tim coming in. This sounds the most like a complete song on the album, next to Evil's My Friend. This to me is maybe what would have come after Life Won't Wait and Rancid 2000. The thing is, we're already a little scarred by Indestructible and Dominoes. So I also think that maybe Brandon got a little bit more comfortable here. Maybe it took him an album to get used to the style. Gravedigger, I actually didn't mind that. It had kind of like a little horror punk sound to me. And there's a bonus track breakdown. I like the simplicity and the like really rock and roll kind of lick in the beginning. Obviously, this album is flawed. I think listening, though, to me, much better than I expected compared to the other two, especially coming back and listening it into succession. Minimal mad vocals. And, favorite tracks, Evil's My Friend, and The Streets Already Dead, Gravedigger, least favorite, Diabolical, Malfunction. It's just okay. Mark, it's one of those things where it's like,
Yep.
2017 now. Here we are, June 9th, 2017. We get Troublemaker on Hellcat. Again, Tim, Lars, Matt, Brendan. Brett Gurewitz as the producer, 17 tracks, 36 minutes. The tracks were written solely by Tim, and they were intended for a second solo album, but when Brett heard them, he suggested Rancid go back into the studio. It's actually the first album cover to feature the original Rancid logo, since the first self-titled album in '93. So pretty interesting factoid. Mark, your thoughts on Troublemaker here?
Half of this album is the Rancid I want. The other half isn't.
There you go.
This was a tough one. My favorite tracks on this, Make It Out Alive and This Is Not the End. But you get songs like Buddy. You get songs like Track Fast, which kind of suckered me in because I was like, it's under a minute. It's the opening track.
It's a fast track.
Fast track, yeah. But it didn't do anything, and that's a problem, right? The fast tracks previously, they told a story real quick, real fast. It was opening a door and just getting sucker punched. This didn't deliver that way. You get some songs that are kind of cool, like Telegraph Avenue. But Farewell Lola Blue just kind of didn't do anything for me. All American Neighborhood was just one of those like, where are we going with this? Bover Rock and Roll, though, at 3 minutes, one of the longer tracks on the album, was really interesting to me. I felt like there was much more meat on the bone for that than a lot of the rest of the album. As I said, I really liked Make It Out Alive. Molly, Make Up Your Mind. It felt like Rancid needed to make up their mind. It just, I know, I'm sorry. I Got Them Blues Again. I could see why this would be a Tim solo record more than a Rancid album.
Yeah.
I think he likes some of these slower paced things. He wanted to take a little of the rock and roll out of it, maybe put a little rock steady in it, maybe put a little bit of dub into it. I may be wrong on this. I think the backing band for the first solo album was the Scatolites.
I think you're right.
So like he had a really cool band to back him up. And I think if you take that approach with a band of that caliber again, not that Rancid's a bad band, but stylistically, I think these songs, he wrote them probably with that in mind. And these probably would have been a little more successful on that. This record for me just really fell very flat of what you expect out of a Rancid record, even compared to the last two.
Yeah, totally. So the Tim solo album stuff makes sense because we get even less Lars singing here, with him making vocal appearances on 4 tracks. Now, I don't think this album, I went back and forth. I don't think actually it's good as Honor, but I think it's a safe record. You get no experimentation, no ballads, and at this point in their career, they don't need to do that. The closest thing to them doing something different, like you said, is Bother rock and roll, where it sounds like the Clash meets the Stones. Track Fast, Ghost of a Chance showcases that they could write those typical Rancid style songs. We only get one ska song on the album, which is Where I'm Going. So if you're like me and you anticipate those 2 to 3 ska songs that break up the album, not happening. Some reviews I've seen say that this is a better effort than Honor. I don't know. I mean, they're both very similar, but to me, there were more standout tracks for some reason on Honor. This is just okay, but again, I'll take Honor in this over Indestructible and Dominoes. So, favorite tracks on here. I do like Ghost of a Chance, Telegraph Avenue, Bava Rock and Roll. Least favorite, Buddy, Farewell Lola Blues sounds like leftover from Dominoes. I got them blues again. So, it's just out there for me,
Yeah, I did a little what the kids call back of the napkin math while we were talking.
I like that.
Just counting the standard tracks on that, so no bonus tracks, just the songs on Rancid albums, right? Officially licensed album, 171.
Oh my god!
Across 9 records.
Oof,
it's insane.
Wow.
It's absolutely insane. So, it's one of those things, if you guys remember back to the Rolling Stones, the Let It Be versus Let It Be versus Let It Bleed record, one of the things I say about the Rolling Stones is, look, you've got this many records and you've written this many songs. Now, mind you, most Rolling Stones records have, I think, 9 to 11 songs, whereas, the average here is like 17 to 19 songs.
Yeah, totally.
And the Stones have many more albums. You're bound to write some stuff that we don't like, or you're going to run out of a lot of the creative juices that you were pumping out early on. And you really feel that with the back half of the Rancid catalog. You really feel like, between life going on, between all these other projects, in 2012, Tim Armstrong produced the Jimmy Cliff album Rebirth, which
there you go.
Which he won a Grammy for production on, and that had Guns of Brixton as a single and Ruby Soho on it as a single. Really cool reggae album. If you haven't heard it, Jimmy Cliff Rebirth, check it out. It's awesome. It won a fucking Grammy. Not that I usually care what those people think, but when I agree with them, they're right. So like, you get a band that has done so much, that has given so much, right? And like those songs don't include all those songs that you like that popped up on a comp somewhere that you're like, dude, this is awesome. Why isn't this on an album?
Right.
All those B-sides and C-sides, all the all the songs that he wrote for other people, writing 7 songs for Pink, right? You look at all these things, the Rockabilly Band with Matt where he helped write songs, the 2 Lars Fredriksons and the Bastard albums where he wrote a bulk of the songs, the idea that, the last 3 to 4 albums haven't been that good. Well, you know what? When the first 5 are absolutely immaculate and packed with amazing songs, yeah, that's bound to happen.
Yeah.
So
you know what, you bring up such a good point here when we talk about the output, right? The output of all these songs that have been written. Think of Springsteen during the whole River and stuff like that. I mean, all those songs that were written, you're going to have some where, hey, listen, they're just not on par with these other amazing songs. Majority amazing songs, by the way. And listen, it's hard. You've heard me say this before. It's hard. I'm writing stuff right now, and all of it to me, they're trying to figure out the arrangements. I'm like, that all just sounds the same. So the fact that they have all of these songs and the majority of them are good, I mean, it's so impressive at the end of the day. And there's tracks we haven't even heard of. And Mark mentioned there's stuff from the comps. There's a song called The Brothels on Given the Boot Volume 1. I Want to Riot, the ska amped up version from the Beavis and Butthead soundtrack. There's Just a Feeling, which I believe was on their first EP. Brad Logan from South Park, and then there's the Brad Logan version from the Life Won't Wait demos. There's Life Won't Wait demos. So there's so much out there, and the efficiency and the output and the creativity of all this, it's truly, truly impressive, even in the low point. of them creating albums. And now it comes to the point, Mark, where, with the 9 albums, well, we gotta rank them. Where do we rank them? Again, the caveat is that the top spots, maybe they're, changing based on how the albums hit us at particular times. But I'm pretty confident with this list. So, Mark, would you like me to go first, or would you want to take it here?
I want you to go first.
Okay.
I don't think we're going to particularly surprise anybody with these. Give me go down though. Give me 9 to 1.
9 to 1. Okay, here we go. So number 9, Indestructible. I just,
really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Even though I was pretty brutal with both that and Let the Dominoes Fall, I pretty much said, okay, which one do I like more songs off of? And it was actually Let the Dominoes Fall. So I go Indestructible, then Let the Dominoes Fall. 7, Troublemaker. 6, Honor Is All We Know. Those are interchangeable. I just happen to like a couple more tracks off of Honor Is All We Know. And Mark, as you can imagine, 5 through 1 is where we get really tough here. So
Yep.
5 is Let's Go. 4 is Rancid 93. 3 is Now Come the Wolves. These last 2 are interchangeable. I think I may know your number 1, so I'm going to just be different. 2 for me is Life Won't Wait, and number 1 is Rancid. 2000.
And that's perfectly acceptable. Yeah, and that's what's interesting about these, right? Because my lineup's a bit different from Frank's, actually, all the way across.
That's cool, though.
Yeah, but that's what's great about it, right? Hey, look, you're going to get different things out of these bands than we're going to get. That's why you're going to like bands that we don't like. And even though I'm going to tell you they're shit, listen, it's your right to listen to them. It's okay to like a band. It's okay to like a record. But it's also okay not to like it.
Totally.
This is a forum to discuss things we like and we don't like. So that said, number 9 for me is Troublemaker. Okay. It felt the least like a Rancid record to me. Number 8, Honor Is All We Know. And then Let the Dominoes Fall. Very similar to you. Which album had more songs that I preferred, and Let the Dominoes Fall just had a few more for me. Like I said, Indestructible at number 6, better than I remembered. The problem with it is that it's got the first 5 Rancid albums to compete with.
Yeah.
So that said, number 5, I'm actually putting the first self-titled album.
Okay.
Number 4 is going to be Let's Go.
Okay.
Number 3 is Rancid. Number 5 is Rancid 2000. That real fast heavy hitter. Number 2's And Out Come the Wolves. That record's amazing, damn near flawless. And then this is a personal thing for me. This record is just absolutely amazing. Number 1 Rancid record for me is Life Won't Wait.
Won't Wait. Yeah. I mean, I consider that putting that in the top spot too, but I was like, I know Mark's going to choose it, so I'm going with
well, and in all honesty, the first 3, Life Won't Wait, Out Come the Wolves, and Rancid number 5, catch me in a certain mood, and any one of those 3 could be on top. When you look at the first Rancid album and Let's Go, which one have I listened to most recently? Because that's probably going to be my favorite.
Yeah.
It's probably those bottom 4 that are probably the most set with where they are. But these records are fucking amazing, especially when you're talking about punk rock. I think albums like And Out Come the Wolves and Life Won't Wait will always rank up against the best work of the Clash, the best work of the Sex Pistols, the best work of the Ramones. It's certainly gonna rank up against the Offspring and Green Day. They're gonna
Bad Religion.
Yeah, Bad Religion, NoFX. They're always going to be one of those bands that's going to be, the flag bearer for this genre and this style of music. They did so much kind of thankless work for putting 90s punk rock on the map that a lot of people who listen to, alternative heavy music today have no idea the impact that they had, which is really a bummer because they're fucking awesome.
I know. It's like what can we say about this band? You know, they're not only important in punk, contributing it again to bring it to the forefront, but just the '90s in general, and I think rock and roll in general. And to me, they're on my Mount Rushmore of punk rock. They are and they were and they are just regular dudes, and they happen to get big. They're unconventional, but they keep their brand and their family very sacred. I once read that Tim doesn't even drive, you know, and Lars is a guy who like loves wrestling. You know, they're just regular dudes. There's realism to them. There's no rock star egos here or people trying to pretend to be better than anyone else. We've talked about how Fat Mike nowadays is a character, and sometimes even, you know, Mike Ness from Social D is pretty full of himself, and I love Social D. But Rancid is true. They're real. They make awesome, timeless records. So, you know, let's just talk real quick. You know, what would we like to see from the next Rancid album, which is in the works actually? More of, you know, you would think it'd be more of the same from Honor and Troublemaker, maybe just a good style of Rancid punk songs with the occasional ska and experimental tune. Of course, I'm gonna you always petition for more Lars, and maybe he'll do a solo album in the future, so I could get the full Lars effect. I know he did before the quarantine. He did a solo show in California with just him and the electric guitar. It was pretty cool. But you know, Mark, real quick, what would you like to see from Rancid in their now 10th album? You know, that's in the works.
You know, I think one of the important things to remember is that, you know, Tim and Matt, and I'm pretty sure Lars is in the same age bracket. They're like in their mid 50s.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so it's one of those things. What do we expect out of this band? Where do we see these things going? For me personally, I'd love to see this next album be called Rancid 10. You know, a throwback to Rancid 5 and the first Rancid album. I'd love to see them get back to old-fashioned, dirty, fast, well-crafted songs that just punch you when you're not looking. I'd still love to see a little bit of that ska and that roots mixed in there. But, you know, hey, look, these guys are in their mid-50s. They've done it all. They've seen it all. I'm almost surprised that they want to be doing another record at this point, or we're working on one before this whole COVID shenanigans started. But hey, look, if it's what they need to do to express themselves, I'm all for it. We're definitely going to give it a listen and tell you guys if it sucks or not.
Yeah, and just for the record, you get Tim, you know, is 54. Matt Freeman is 53. Lars is 48, and Brandon, the drummer, is 41. So I mean,
he's older than I thought.
Yeah, there's some juice in them for sure, and I think it'll be interesting. Like Mark, I would listen. To me, it's all about the songs. Are they good? I would like to see some of the fast, gritty Rancid songs. I kind of want everything maybe from them. I don't know if it's an album where I'm going to want 19, 20 songs, but I'll take 15 ones with all types of styles of Rancid songs. And maybe just some interesting solo efforts in the future. So that's the spotlight on Rancid, Mark, and I think we pretty much covered everything we could possibly cover about Rancid.
Well, we didn't mention Lars's other group, the Old Firm Casualties.
There is. That's right. You know what? I did not actually.
Who are putting out some really cool rock and roll. They call themselves an oi band. If you don't know what that is, just Google it. I'm not here to tell you what the internet already knows. But pretty cool stuff. Pretty awesome. Just kind of rock and roll, a little bit throwback towards if you liked what he did with the Bastards. Not quite as punk, a little more rock and rolly. But I dig it. I think you'd dig it too.
Yeah, you know what? I did my research. I don't know why that got glossed over. I think Lars is he's in so many different bands, that I was like, oh, let me just put certain ones on there. And I think there's even more bands he might be in too.
Well, we didn't talk about the UK subs and
Stomper 98, Oxley's Midnight Runners. So there is quite a few. But I mean, they're out there. Listen, they're out there, and all members are definitely proficient with what they're putting out. Mark, should I lead then into our next episode?
Yeah, tell me what we're listening to.
So we're going to take a look and this is all my opinion, of course, at an underrated band, and that band is Cheap Trick. Their second album, 1977's In Color, started showing a more polished production with more melodies and consistency than their first album. Although ranked among their best, actually the band dismissed it with regards to it not representing their live sound. However, the quality of the songs on here, to me, is spot on. You get straight up rock and roll with their signature power pop sound, and Robin Zander's vocals are just on point, and such an underappreciated singer. You get a single, of course, that you might know from the band called "I Want You to Want Me," and
I've heard of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the track you would probably know. And although the album track is polished, there's some great points on this album. It's just straight up rock and roll. You can blare it loud because you get nice loud guitars. It's still a great album from an underappreciated band. Mark, your thoughts on listening to this record here?
Yeah, I only know what's been on the radio from Cheap Trick, so should be interesting to dive into a record because I've honestly never listened to anything Cheap Trick that wasn't on the radio. What that full album's like, well, and how does it compare to Propaganda's cover of "We Want"?
I want you to
want me. But that should be a good time. I'm looking forward to it.
Cool. Well, this has been fun. I can't wait to do more Spotlight episodes. Of course, the research was totally fascinating, and I hope everyone else enjoyed it out there. It's a monster of an episode, but I think all in good ways. So we really hope you enjoyed it. Check us out on Instagram, of course, YouTube. Follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. Give us suggestions. We're open to them. Hopefully no more Tremonti albums, but but we'll take your request, and we got some cool stuff coming up. So from all of us here, thank you very much, and we'll see you guys soon.
Bye-bye.